Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Homeschooled. I'm Carmen, and I'm here to talk about homeschool. And today with me is my good friend, Giovanna. Hi, Giovanna.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. And I'm really excited for you to be on the show today because I think that you have a lot of input to bring and a lot of insight. And so I just wanted to start by introducing you and letting you tell a little bit about how people can also find you. I know that you do a podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I am a co-host on the podcast with that's called The Neglected, with Nick Schultz, and we interview people who have been neglected, but we use that term to mean a slew of things, whether you've been neglected through adoption, being an orphan, racially, social economically. The goal of the podcast is really just so that people can have access to stories because stories matter. So that's that project.
That's good. And it's a really good podcast. Lots of great episodes. So people can find that on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes, it's on new YouTube and then anywhere where you find podcasts, just The Neglected.
Cool. The Neglected. So you'll want to definitely check out Giovanna and her co-host Nick Schultz there. And additionally, you work professionally as what? Tell us about that.
So I am a counselor. Just recently got my licensure as a LAPC. Whoop whoop
Whoop,
letters.
whoop. Yeah,
Uh,
just recently passed and we celebrated that. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. So I do that. I'm also do behavior therapy with children with autism.
Okay.
So I've been in the psychology world for about almost 10 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. At the point that we met you and you came into our lives, um, you came in as this, like, in my mind, in my perspective, this really accomplished young adult with like so much that you have done. I mean, mad respect for you. And it's true. Like there that is definitely true. And then having gotten to know you, I know that there's a lot to your story that you persevered and I think like this, like if I were gonna say your story in a nutshell is I punched life in the face. Jesus wins and I'm ready, like I'm loving, living. Like I think that's like
Yes,
for me, if I were gonna tell about my friend Giovanna, that's what I would tell.
I love that.
So
That is,
yeah,
I punched life in the face. Yeah,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So if you want to hear more about Giovanna or get to know her more, look at The Neglected. Yeah. So I just wanted people to connect with you. And the reason why I have you here on a homeschooled episode is because as a homeschool mom, I realize that for me to be able to show up for my kids and to lead my kids, which I believe I'm more than a mom, I'm more than an educator, I'm a leader in my kids' lives, I need to be healthy physically, mentally, and spiritually. So, like, I use the language in my home, like, we're going to train our bodies, train our minds, train our spirits. So, we're going to talk about training our minds today. And the reason why I've invited you on is to help us understand some of these things that involve the mind and the brain and mental health that also is hand in hand with emotional health. And we know it's all connected. But tell us, Giovanna, why is mental health important?
So mental health is important because it's just like you said, it's connected to so many things. It informs like what we're thinking day to day, informs how our emotions are. It informs how we behave. And also, we know that our stress and our mental pain can manifest in our bodies. Just like you said before, it's all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we're not taking care of ourselves mentally, and so if you're already coming from a position of stress, then of course you're going to be more irritable. Of course, it might be even hard to sleep. It might impact how you're eating. It might impact so many aspects of your life. So mental health is very important that we're staying in tune with the thoughts that we're thinking, just where we are mentally is so important.
Right. And I know that you literally can be transformed by renewing your mind. Like that's biblical. We find that in Romans 12. And there's so much that science backs up as far as like your thoughts and being intentional about your thoughts. And so I think it's so fascinating. And I love the fact that you have so many years poured into education over this. I heard someone say it this way, that stress in the mind causes anxiety in the body. So if someone is listening and they're feeling really anxious and maybe they're having physical symptoms right now in their body, I think it would be a good time to stop and go, hey, why am I feeling the stress in my body? Where is this anxiety coming from? And so how can someone easily filter like heightened emotions in order to stay mentally healthy? And if we need to define like heightened emotions, let's start there. Like, how would we define what is a heightened emotion?
And so I would define a heightened emotion, like when I hear that, the first thing that goes through my mind is that it's overwhelming,
Okay.
that it's an all-consuming thing. And so there's a difference. It's normal to be sad. It's normal to be stressed. It's normal to get angry. But if these emotions and these states of being are becoming, like, if we use graphic words, like suffocating,
Okay.
and you can't get your mind off of it, if it's impacting how you're interacting with your spouse, with your children, I would say that that is something that we would need to dig into. Like, that would be a heightened emotion. So just using that definition, I think filtering through, I think one, we have to accept that we're human,
Right.
that it's okay that sometimes our emotions do get there. The second thing is to start investigating. And it's not easy to do because I think that as people, we're very hard on ourselves. Our first instinct is, man, why am I so angry today? Or why am I so irritable? And we can tend to beat ourselves up instead of doing some investigating on the why, observing yourself, asking that question of, just like you were mentioning earlier, like, let's look at ourselves in a holistic approach. What are my thoughts like lately? How's my sleep? Am I eating well? How's my social life? How's my spiritual life? Really start to investigate what's going on when you're in that heightened state. One, when we're in a heightened state, we do want to de-escalate first. But then when we get back down to the bottom of the staircase, we need to start investigating on what's going on with us.
That's good. And I think that what you said about like sleep and eating, I kind of want to go deeper with that right now, because I read an article quite a while back that was talking about a way to manage stress is get enough sleep, be sure you're eating healthy, kind of get that quiet me time. And it almost sounds like a stand-up comedy routine to me for the parent of a young child. Like if you have a baby or a toddler, that's like how it's impossible, you know? So I thought of my friends who do have young children who maybe they're getting up routinely through the night or their babies are teething and it's really, really overwhelming. And so, as much as it is up to you and as far as you can, you need to be getting healthy sleep and feeding your body the right things. And then hopefully in a way to combat feeling overwhelmed, begin to investigate, hey, why am I thinking these thoughts? Why am I feeling this way? And so if those are the heightened emotions, how can we filter that in order to stay mentally and emotionally healthy? Are there any like simple tools, or like how do we investigate?
Yeah. And so I do want to bring it back to de-escalating ourselves, because it is hard to really investigate when I'm at the top of the staircase. And so I don't have a piece of paper, but if we imagine that we're on a staircase and the bottom of the staircase is calm, the middle of the staircase is agitated, and the top of the staircase is escalated. If you're in a heightened state, you're probably in between escalated and agitated. So we really need to get you down the staircase. And something that I think is interesting is most of us think that we might go from calm to the top of the staircase. It's normally like a slow climb on up there. So if we're in that state, really doing breathing exercises, I think it's a great way to de-escalate, taking time for yourself, journaling if you like to journal. I think everybody should journal, even if you don't like journaling.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's a great way, a great like dumping site. And so once we have de-escalated, some good filtering questions. One I love is the 5 whys. I love asking myself the question of why. And so let's say you're super angry and you've snapped at your kids more than norm, and you want to investigate what's going on with that. After you've de-escalated, the kids are in bed, you've done your thing to to bring yourself back down the staircase, you might ask yourself, why did I snap today? And then you would answer that question. So let's say the answer to that question is, no one was listening to me. Well, why did that bother me? And then you would answer that question. Then you go to the next why and to the next why. Because oftentimes there's something underneath that agitation, whether it be that I am overwhelmed and I need to start asking for more help, or I am being way too hard on myself because I want perfect kids, perfect life, which isn't real. So, or maybe I'm in a comparison trap. But I think the first thing in order to filter is to really filter what's underneath it. And sometimes you don't have to do all 5 to find what's underneath it. Sometimes you'll find it at the 3rd. But I liken it to like digging. Like I feel like you feel that tink of like, that's what it is. That's what's flowing underneath these thoughts. These thoughts of, I don't feel good enough is one that will commonly be underneath emotions and behavior. So I think being able to filter what's going on underneath so that you can actually address it is really important.
That's really good because it's a simple thing to remember and it's a really simple thing to do. You just have to, I think a great time to do that, like you said, is after you put the kids to bed at night, just getting a quiet time by yourself. And if you're too exhausted, maybe try to grab some time in the morning before your kids get up. I have friends who are morning people. I have friends who are night people, and we'll get to screen time in a little bit. But if you need to use the screen as a tool so that you can get 10 minutes of quiet time to yourself to kind of get your thoughts together, I think that something that can be powerful as a mom is identify the resources around you and use those. And I can identify with, like as a mom and as a homeschool mom and a stay-at-home mom, and I'm very busy with my husband in what we do, like in life. He's a pastor and things like that. So juggling, like knowing that there's an expectation at the house for housework to be accomplished and be done. I mean, somebody has to be doing the laundry. Somebody has to be doing the dishes. It doesn't have to be me. I'm overqualified for certain tasks. Like I'm overqualified for feeding the pets because there's someone else who can feed the pets. I'm overqualified for doing everybody's laundry because most of my kids can do their own laundry. So saying that, like there is a certain level of like expectation with the house and then expectation with academically getting everything done. And my friend Christine brought this to the conversation of really developing kids, not just to be academically intelligent, but to be emotionally intelligent and socially intelligent. So then there's the whole aspect of, am I giving my kids a well-rounded upbringing in a healthy environment? And there's just a lot, plus like the infamous question, what's for dinner? So then there's the whole like the grocery trip and planning and everything. So you kind of pile more and more and more things on when you're juggling a household, and it can get overwhelming. But I think that the most important thing for moms and for anybody leading a household is that if you will give yourself a break and give yourself permission to get yourself in a healthy place mentally, emotionally, your family and all the things will benefit so greatly. And it doesn't all have to be done 100%, and it doesn't have to all be done, to the level in which it looks like in your head. You're just going to have to let a couple things go. And I know, like, you've heard me kind of unpack some of those things where it's like, I have to do this. Like, all of this has to be done. And, in your wisdom, you're like, do you have too high of an expectation? And yes, I did. Yeah. Like I have a high expectation of what my life should look like and should be like. But I think that if I live in that and I become like, if I stay escalated, then I don't want my kids to have that memory of me. I don't want my husband to have that memory of me. I would rather them have fun and healthy memories of me. So I think that's really important. And so just coming back to saying, I think that this is really simple to do, and these are really good tools to bring. What should we look for in our kids to identify that they are mentally and emotionally healthy? What are some signs that we can look for?
I mean, I think that with kids, it's about knowing your kids. And so if you notice an extreme change in behavior, that would be something to clue into. Most of us know that puberty is hard. And so meeting them where they are. I mean, I don't think we mean to, but I think sometimes we can forget that they're kids and they're new to living and that they're not adults yet. And so I think just good practice in general is walking them through those moments, letting them know it's okay to be sad, letting them know that it's okay to have emotions, and what we do with them behaviorally. Like, it's fine that you're sad, but when we're sad, we're not going to throw things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, this is what we can do. I think it's hard to tell with kids when it's extreme, but I think that as parents, especially as moms, just paying attention to if there are extreme changes in your child. If your teenager is more recluse than their typical personality, if they're more low, if there's more behavioral outbursts. And I think that those are the main things to be looking out for. But just be having these conversations, especially when they're little, just about, and keeping them age appropriate.
Yeah.
I think 2-year-olds, they have a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
2 and 3-year-olds.
They have a lot of feelings
and
and a little bit of words to express it. So
yeah,
it's mostly
like, I don't know what's
fits.
happening.
Yeah.
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 And I think that good practice in shaping kids with good mental and emotional stability is telling them what they can do instead of honing in on what not to do.
Okay.
And so, example being, if you have a kid that tends to, when they're angry, throw things, instead of saying don't throw things, let's tell them what they can do.
Okay.
Let's tell them, like, if we're mad, we can do our breath in and blow out the candle like a dragon, or we can stomp around, or whatever's appropriate for your home. But I think one way that you can tell, honestly, is to keep an eye on them. Definitely keep teaching them, because these are teaching, shaping moments.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when it's extreme, I think most people are clued into when it's extreme, of like, if your kid does have really big behavioral outbursts, and they cannot be consoled or de-escalated, that's something that I'll pay attention to. The frequency, how often is that happening?
Mm-hmm.
How often? And it's never a shame thing, and so don't feel like it's your fault. I think that moms carry too much weight of, like, this is my fault. There's so many practitioners available that work with children, that work with outbursts,
Yeah.
that are more than willing to partner with you in that. So if it is in high frequency, and by high frequency, I mean, not like my kid cried most of the day and they're 5 years old and I couldn't get their favorite toy. Like, more like they cried, they stomped, could not be de-escalated, and they went from, like, being upset to doing destructive behavior.
Yeah.
If you're seeing lots of that, then that's definitely, I think, a moment to, like, okay, I think that we need to get that checked out.
Right.
But for the most part, mental and emotional health in your kids, this is a perfect opportunity to shape that.
Yeah.
And that's not to add more pressure, but
Yeah.
that's just to be clued in to, like, what's normal, and don't be afraid to ask what's normal, because you might not know. Because I think in puberty, there's a lot. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot going on there. And so it's not abnormal for them to go to extremes. That's not necessarily like an indicator that something's wrong.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect opportunity to walk them through, like, there's a lot going on inside of you. Let's teach you about this. Let's teach you what you can do when you're sad, how you can talk to people when you're irritated. And so I think really paying attention, noting frequency. I am an advocate of data. So
Okay.
just taking those notes of, like, okay, I've noticed for the past 3 days, this has been the same behavior. I'm going to reach out to somebody and ask some more questions. Please don't depend on Google, because you're going to get mixed results there.
Listen, people, there are professionals who have poured years of their life into learning. You have to go to the professionals. I have to tell you, Giovanna, I'm guilty of, like, oh, this is a weird symptom I'm having. Like, let me find out what Google says. And while that can be like a quick, maybe little insight, it's not the depth of the professional help for sure. So yeah. So I echo what Giovanna is saying. Know when it's time for professional help. I like the positive reinforcement of tell a child what they can do, and don't just, use the negative hammer all the time. So I think that right now in our current situation, there are people who, I mean, like, we are in shelter in place. Like, we have to be home. we have to look and deal with the people who live in our homes like more frequently than normal, when everyone kind of goes their own way through the day. So I think that these are good tools and good insights to be put to use right now at this time when you have the time to work with your children. And I think this works really well for a normal functioning child. And so my heart is really going out to like those parents who maybe they don't know they're looking at a special needs case because maybe their children haven't had enough data yet to be able to look at, or maybe a mom is having a really hard time owning the fact that this is not a normal situation. So for that mom, I just want to say, the more that you can look through the lens of reality and own for yourself what's in front of you, then the quicker that you can bring aid to your situation. I'm particularly thinking of like when a child, maybe the data is beginning to show, hey, this is more frequent and more violent than I think what should be normal, or, you know, whatever on the spectrum of what, you know, what would be normal versus not normal. What are some resources that are out there when we do return back to, you know, normal life? Tell me about different therapies that are available that they should maybe look into.
So there's a whole slew of them. Counseling wise, there's play therapy for kids. There's behavior therapy, which is the mode of therapy I've done for a while. Occupational physical therapy, speech therapy. And so all of those avenues are all fairly good ones. I've heard of many great play therapists in the Savannah area, really. They're very passionate about what they do, that are willing to partner with families. They love doing what they do. I'm on one of their groups and I get to see like their ideas and how they're empowering kids and how they're empowering families. And so if a parent wants to go on that journey, I think the first step really is getting proper diagnosis.
Okay.
You can do that through your primary care physician. You can do that through a referral to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Or you can, if you're feeling like I'm not sure what is going on, you can reach out to play therapists in this area. You can contact some of the behavior therapies that are here. Most of them are clinic-based. I know that Babies Can't Wait will work with children right out the gate if you do get flagged by your primary care physician. So there's plenty of things in early intervention, honestly, because we found that early intervention works.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic tool. If we
really
can
does.
get in there before 5 and really work on speech and really work on these adaptive targets and really work on like academics, there's a lot that can be done if we can get in there early. And there's a lot that can be done for the parents too. It's also about empowering parents and helping them feel comfortable in the situation that they're in and have hope too, because I can't imagine carrying a child for 9 months and then not knowing what you're looking at or not understanding what's going on, or your kids not hitting milestones, or when they are hitting their milestones, but their behavior is really escalated. So I just want it to be heard that I understand that it's not easy. I don't understand what it's like, but I can only fathom how that has to be really difficult to really step into that and own that and ask for help, because most of the families that I work with, they don't just have me. They have 3 or 4 other therapists that are in their lives. So you're welcoming a lot of people into your lives, which I know can be overwhelming too. But just so you know, there are so many practitioners that are passionate about children, passionate about early intervention, love what they do, love empowering families. And so when you're ready and you're ready to receive that help, there are so many people that are ready to help you.
There are so many people that are out there that work in fields that I believe they're called to because they're so good at what they do. And they have this, besides the professional level of what they bring, they have this intuitiveness, it almost seems like, about their job. And I say that because, so I'm a mom of a special needs child. One of my children has physical special needs, and kind of that kind of bleeds over into other areas too. But when he was born, and his story will be for another time, I'll just tell you briefly. When he was born, he was brain dead and blind at 2 weeks old. So when we planned a funeral and took him off the respirator, he opened his eyes and took a breath. And I'll tell you that story at another time. But basically, that was at 2 weeks old. We stayed at the hospital in the NICU until he was 2 months old. And then when we went home, they were like, we don't know what to tell you about your child, except if you will expose him to as much therapy as possible, say yes to everything, then the chances of his adult life being better they're just way off the charts better. And so without knowing what we were looking at, we did that. And so as he hit milestones, like, okay, he can crawl, he can eat with a spoon, he can say words, we celebrated those because we literally didn't know what we were looking at. But we got him into speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, aquatics therapy, horseback riding lessons. And he's 11 years old now, and he is much better because of it. But I went through a journey of feeling guilty that he was in the state that he was in, because I felt like if I had known better what was happening in my pregnancy, then I could have possibly prevented it. And I had to go through this whole journey of like, this is not in my control. And so I need to control the things that I can control, and I need to let go of the things that I can't control. And that wasn't a one-time decision for a lot of the areas in my life and his life. It's been a continual, like, okay, I have to let that go. I have to let that go. And so as a mom of a special needs child, I will tell you that if you will get them into therapy, into the professionals, just the chances of their life having better quality of life as they age, it's undeniable. And so I definitely resound what you're saying, Giovanna. That's awesome. Thank you for bringing that. So let's see, when is it time to reach out for professional help? You kind of answered this as far as like looking at your child, and talked about the tools. So like as a mom and as a parent, if there's someone who's feeling they're not emotionally or mentally healthy, when is a good time for them to go, you know what, I need to reach out to somebody professionally?
Yeah. I think what most people do is they reach out when they're in distress.
Okay.
And I think I might have said this before. I'm not sure. I say this a lot, but I'm really passionate about us hitting a point in life where we treat mental health like we do our physical health, where we go and get checkups. And I think those are important. But I think in terms of when should I contact a professional, I think it's if you're noticing that the coping skills you have aren't working.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, if you are finding that stress is overwhelming, if you're not able to de-escalate yourself, if that is a thing that is difficult for you, if you're more on the depressive side of things, because if we look at ourselves as like having a window of how much we can tolerate, if you're finding yourself that you fly out of that window often, I think that is a time to get professional help. I think that we are slowly getting rid of the stigma of going to counseling. And I've been very excited in my counseling practice to meet with people who are like, I'm okay. It's just, I'm noticing that I'm a little bit more sad than my normal. Or I'm okay, but I'm noticing that like I am not handling stress that well. I think that is a perfect opportunity. And I love working with people who are not fully escalated. Hold on one second.
Okay.
My dog is losing his mind. Can you hear me?
Is your dog in distress?
He is clearly in distress,
and
he needs
de-escalate
counsel.
him.
I am not de-escalating him properly. But I think that those are key moments to be paying attention to. If you're noticing that self-awareness wise, that you're like, man, I'm finding myself in a very low state. Like almost every day I wake up and I am defeated. I think that is a perfect time to get some help, to get insight, because I think that another thing along with that is that counseling isn't necessarily about me telling you what to do. It's about exploring what's going on for you, uncovering these thoughts, uncovering these beliefs, kind of what you said previously in this conversation about like, do you have this perfectionistic model of what a mom should be? And we can deconstruct that and get you some coping skills. So I don't think it has to be like, I haven't gotten out of bed in 5 days.
Yeah.
Definitely go in if that's where you're at. But I think it also can be like, for the past week, I have just not been able to muster it up.
Mm-hmm.
I can't move forward, or I'm feeling defeated, or any of those feelings or thoughts. I think are definitely moments that it would be time to contact a counselor. And it might just be that you need someone to listen to and to direct you to resources. It doesn't have to be, I have a diagnosis to
Yeah.
go in.
Yeah. I mean, I think people who have lived long enough to become a parent, like they know there are different seasons in life, and
Hmm.
if you're in a season that you just need a little extra boost, a little extra guidance, no shame in that. You know, that's why people are professional in this area. So let's kind of circle back. I had a question about screen time. Like, I would love to hear your
Hmm.
input on screen time for kids, because again, in our current situation, a lot of people are at home longer in the day than they should be in a normal
Hmm.
situation, and or I guess I should say that they would be. And then I know a lot of schools have decided to do school online. So you're already getting
Hmm.
that amount of screen time. I don't know all the science behind like the light of the screen and how it affects your eyes and your brain and all that stuff. I'm just kind of like asking the general question from your professional standpoint. Like, what are they saying about screen time in your profession?
Yeah. And so I sent you the article that I typically refer to. And so hopefully you'll be able to post that
Okay.
and give that to your listeners. But I really like his take on it, which is what they're saying is younger ages, so below 6, is supposed to be 1 hour of playing on screen time. So that
Okay.
means games. There is this kind of positioning of like, it depends on the quality. So it's okay if, there's a little bit more if it's academic or interactive learning.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying 2 to 2.5 hours for teens in terms of play.
Okay.
But he also introduces this concept of a play diet. And so making sure that the frequency of
Okay.
screen time isn't outweighing the frequency of social, the frequency of interacting with books, of doing pretend play, of playing with toys, those kind of things. And I think that that would be the direction that I typically steer parents, because I also get that um, we as adults aren't even really good at managing our own screen time. So,
The
like, I
time
think that,
management
yes,
issue is hidden in the concept of like screen time. So it's all about time management, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I'm an advocate of meeting yourself where you are and really assessing what's going on home wise.
Yeah.
And so I would never suggest just like going up to your kids and saying, only 1 hour of playing on the iPad, if
Mm-hmm.
really they're spending 3, 4 hours. And so I think what comes down to with screen time is really the that's their suggested amount is an hour, 2 hours for older kids. But let's also be mindful of what are they doing, like balance wise.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're on their tablet 3 hours, but for 5, 6 hours they're outside and they're playing and they're
Mm-hmm.
being creative, then I would look at the quality of their screen time. So
Okay.
for that 3 hours, where are they engaging in? Is it 3 hours of YouTube? Is it 3 hours of interactive games that are geared towards learning?
Okay. That's
Um,
that's good. That's good input. Because I know that there are apps with like spelling, math,
mhm.
reading, sight words on YouTube. I mean, you can do sight words or whatever learning videos. I like the term play diet,
Mhm.
because yeah, you want to balance your physical activity with also maybe you are learning on screens and on games and stuff, and you're um, activating your brain that way. So that'll be a new term in my household: play diet. That's good.
Yeah, no, and so I completely suggest, like, before I work on any kind of screen time stuff with clients, when they're concerned about their parents, or not their parents, their children or themselves, is to really take 3 days to really look at what the normal setting is.
Okay.
because sometimes we can minimize the data or we can maximize it. So if you were talking to me and you're like, they're on it like all day, well, then is it really all day from when they
Yeah.
wake up to go to sleep?
Right.
And add TV in there too. How often, which I don't really think kids watch TV anymore,
Yeah.
but how often are
Definitely
my
not live
kids
TV.
on their tablets?
Yeah.
Nope.
And I think too, like, this is where I'm not going to set like a time rule for my household or my family, because like on a rainy day, on a cloudy day, they're probably going to get a little bit more screen time than on a sunny day where we're going to be outside anyway. So I would say my
Yeah.
kids definitely are very active physically. And so they have a good balance. But like if I were going to say only 1 hour, like I would stress myself out going, I'm running out of activities on this rainy, cloudy day, you know, and then I would be like, I have to
Yeah.
break my own rule, you know. So I'm not going to set like an amount, but I am going to look at it in conjunction of juggling all of their other time. And then the article that you sent me is psychologytoday.com, and the title is How Much Screen Time Should Kids Be, and then it kind of cuts off with the title there, but we'll try to put it up on they'll add it in post. I'm sure they will, because
Yeah.
I'm not my own editor, although I should be. Anyway, well, that's good. That's really good information. I kind of went through like my list of questions. And before I kind of wrap up on what my takeaway is there anything else that you're thinking of that you just want to add?
Yeah, no, something else that you said when you were talking about like what's in my control, I think that's a great thing that moms can do as well, and even dads, if you're overwhelmed, is get Post-it notes out and make two piles of what's in my control, what's out of my control, and sort and be able to take a look at it. And so that way you can have like a physical representation of what you're carrying as well. But it's outside of your control if your kids tornado through the house after you clean it. Like, it feels like it should be in your control, but it's not. It's not. But like, and then also like asking yourself, so when you do the 5 whys, asking yourself, is this helpful? Is it helpful as a mom to be thinking about myself in this way? Is this helpful? And for those that are believers, asking yourself, can I see this coming out of the mouth of Jesus?
Okay.
Can I see Jesus saying, you're the worst mom? Can I see that coming out of his mouth?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good
Mary
question.
lost him.
That's a good question.
I mean, let's just be real.
Yeah.
Mary lost him for a couple of days. So
yeah. I'm all about authenticity and transparency. So if the answer is yes, then you got to deal with it, right? Like,
yeah.
that's pretty heavy right there.
But yeah, more often than not, moms are just really hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And I think be the mom that you are.
Yeah.
If you are the hands-on, creative, can make Play-Doh from scratch mom, be that. If you're the mom that is really good at using fun voices when you read stories to your kids, own that. Y'all don't have to be the superstar mom with the Pinterest meals on the table, because like you mentioned, that's not what your kids are going to remember. They're going to remember that mom was really present with me.
Yeah.
And she gave me love, and when I was sad, she taught me how to behave in my sadness, and that it was okay. That's how we form and shape healthy children that grow into healthy adults.
Yeah. Be the best version of you, because comparison is a trap, for sure. So get out of the trap of comparison. And I'm preaching to the choir here. And so I have to tell myself these things very often, because I have to bring myself back around to, I need to be the best version of me, because this is who my kids have. This is who my husband has as a wife. So this is kind of my takeaway, Giovanna, from what I hear you saying. So tell me if this is right. So as a mom, in the moment, a tool that you can use if you're feeling overwhelmed is breathe. Whether it's breathe in for a certain count, hold it for a certain count, breathe out for a certain count, and then wait, slow your breathing down. Number 2 is use journaling as a tool, and use that resource to kind of get what's up here, to slow down, get it out on paper, and put that where it needs to be so that you can go on with your day. Go through the 5 whys. And again, it doesn't have to be 5. It can be 2 or 3 if you get to the answer of why am I feeling this way? Okay, why did that happen? And things like that. So go through the 5 whys. Look at the data with your child. Look at frequency of behaviors. And then the Postit idea is brilliant because for people who are concrete and hands-on, this is really brilliant. So get different Postit colors and post like what I can control, one item on each Postit note, what I cannot control. And again, get what's up here, maybe the spinning wheels of anxiety, get it out in front of you and take a realistic picture. And I mean, I would say, ask yourself, if I were giving advice to a friend, what would I say? I have to ask myself that a lot. Like, what would I tell a friend who's going through this? Because it's a lot easier to tell a friend advice than it is to kind of own your own journey through it. And then for kids, definitely focus on the positive. Tell them what they can do. So, no, we're not going to scream at our brother. What you can do is ask, when you're done, can I play with that toy? So focus on what they can do using words. I know that's age appropriate. So if you have a toddler who they don't know words, they just know grunts and noises and screams, they still comprehend. You can still tell them, and then you'll train them up in understanding what they can do. Look for play therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. Look for the professionals if you're finding that the data is there with the frequency. Play diet. That's my new thing. Play diet. Look at how often are they playing outside versus their screen time, and even in their screen time, what is beneficial to them, what would be active versus passive screen time, I would say. And just with your own distress, moments of distress, if it's continued sadness or depression, and if your coping skills aren't really working, then there are resources around you, professionals who have gone to school for a reason and invested their years of learning for a reason, and they're there to help you. And so, Giovanna, I so value your input and who you are. And like I said, you've kind of punched life in the face, and here you are living so grand. Like, you have a lot to live for, a lot of book knowledge, professional knowledge, and life skill knowledge to share with people. So I thank you so much for being here with us today. What do you want to share? Any type of contact information for your business or?
Yeah, so you can reach me via email at jjavis counseling, so that's all one word, at gmail.com. And you can also look up the website dgcounselingllc.com, and that's the practice that I'm a part of.
Okay.
But yeah, email is the quickest way to get a hold of me if you have any questions about the counseling process, because I know that's new for a lot of people. If you want to begin the counseling process, just shoot me an email.
Okay. Thank you for your investment into your career and into your field of expertise so that you can be here for people and help them experience a quality of life that's definitely worth living. So thank you, Giovanna, so much. Hopefully we'll see you again some other time.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'll be safe during this quarantine.
Thank you. And that ends our episode, and I'll see you next time.
All right, bye.